Hello everybody, today I'm going to teach you how to play a game called Delve. It's by Indie Boards and Cards, designed by Richard Lanius, and he's a pretty famous designer, and he has created this really unique game that sort of mixes a tile-laying game like a Carcassonne with like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of game. It's really fun, it's pretty simple, pretty quick, and has some fun little storytelling elements with it. To start in the game, we set this first player tile, start tile in the center, and if you can see here, there are three different styles of floor patterns. There's the corridors in the middle, there's the blue rooms, and then there's the yellow rooms. And then there's icons on there. Those are treasure, gold bags, on there. The premise of the game is that you are taking tiles and you are playing them onto the board and then placing your klansmen into the rooms. And when the rooms get closed off, when they're sealed, then you resolve the rooms. And if you're the only person in the room, then you have an encounter with this encounter deck. But if you were in a room with any other players, then you would have an encounter with them. And in either case, encounters involve rolling some nice big dice with some symbols on them. To start, everyone's going to get 3 XP. They're going to start with a character board that they have chosen. There's kobolds, sellswords, forest folk, and wraiths. They all have a certain special ability. When you can discard XP, they'll do something special. But in general, all of the characters are the same. You have a leader, which rolls a red and a purple dice. You have a thief, which rolls 2 purple dice. A brute, which rolls 3 white dice. And a mage, which rolls 2 white dice but has a little special power, which I'll get to. Now, those 4 are the same for every clan, but then each clan basically has a double of something. So the kobolds are small and sneaky, so they get an extra thief. So everybody has 5 delvers that they can use to go into these rooms. And on your turn, what you do is you have a hand of 3 tiles. So you have your 3 tiles in hand. You choose to place any one of those tiles on the board. It has to be connected to some of the tiles that are out there, any of the tiles that are out there. You can't connect them at a triangle or a diagonal. You can't connect them halfway. It's got to be edge to edge, completely connected. The thing that is difficult for a lot of people to realize, but it's not so tough once you kind of try to hammer this into your head. There are these corridors, as I mentioned. Now you can put any color tile up against any color tile. So this is a continuation of the blue room, but it's also its own yellow room. So that doesn't matter. You can put a yellow up against a blue. It doesn't affect anything. You can put a blue up against a yellow. Again, it doesn't affect anything. But the most important thing you need to know is that corridors always need to connect to corridors. So I could never place something like this because that corridor just goes into a room, and that's not okay. So as long as there are no corridors being blocked, then you can place a tile basically wherever you like. You can always put corridors out into the empty space, the abyss. I did forget to mention also that there are black spaces, blank spaces. Those are just like kind of spaces in between rooms. It doesn't really matter. Those spaces can, they're basically a wall, so don't worry about it. You can, because this is the edge of the board, this is effectively a wall. You can't build anything past there. So you could do something like this, where the corridor does go up against the wall. Let's just move these back here, make it a little bit easier to think about. So that's fine. Yeah, but normally corridors, that's the only placement rule you need to make sure. Corridors have to connect with corridors. So on your turn, you place a tile, and then you can choose to, you place a tile, then you replenish a tile from the stack, and there's a big stack of tiles all over the place. You replenish a tile into your hand, and then you get to place one of your delvers face down inside one of the rooms in a tile that you just placed. So for instance, if I just place this tile, I could place it in this blue room, in this corridor, this corridor, this corridor, or this yellow room. I could do that for every tile that I place, I can put a delver down into it. So if I do this here, now let's say the opponent decides to place a tile here, they can potentially put a delver in the room like that. Now both of us are in the same room, and when the room gets closed off, we'll have an encounter. Basically, we fight against each other, and we potentially split all these beautiful gold bags that are in the room. So you are going to, after you have finished placing your delver, then it goes to the next player's turn. First, you see if you have closed any rooms off. If any rooms did get closed, then you have to resolve them. And I guess, let's just say somebody was in this room and that got closed off. So that needs to get resolved. So the person who's in the room by themselves, and even if it was at the blue player's turn, let's say the yellow player placed this, or the white player placed this to close that room off, this teal player does have to do their resolution immediately. So what we do is we flip the tile over. We see who it is. This is a thief. That means that they're going to get 2 purple dice. These purple dice have symbols on them. Swords are good for combat, obviously, and then the rings are spoils. If you get a certain amount of spoils, if you get more spoils than anybody else, then you get extra treasure, basically. There's also a reroll symbol. So basically when this comes up, so let's say I rolled these 2 symbols. So I have this board right here. I also forgot to mention here that depending on how many players you have, this is a sun tracker. This is going to mark how long the game has before it's over. The game is over whenever the sun tracker gets to this spot, or if all of the gold cards in the deck run out. Depending on how many players you have, you put it on this spot. And when certain tiles get played, if they have a sun icon on them, as soon as they get played, then the sun tracker moves down like that. So you kind of have an option to stall the game or move the game ahead if you like. So anyways, so we're resolving this single room right here. Because this person is by themselves, they don't have an encounter with another person, they have an encounter with the encounter deck. So this is a deck of cards, and what you're going to do is somebody, not the active player, not the player who is resolving it, but somebody is going to read this this flavor text. So across the cave you see another delver torch shadow the darkness. Between you is a bulky chest, sure to make the journey for one of you worth the undertaking. The other delver darts toward the chest as soon as you take a step forward. Do you offer to share the spoils or race them for it? So as the reader, you just say this: offer to share the spoils or race them for it. The delver has to choose which of these 2 options that they're gonna go for without knowing the consequences if they were to succeed or fail. So if they said, all right, I'll offer to share the spoils, then that's considered a failure for the quest, which is important because there's successes and there's failures. It's considered a failure for the quest, but you still get to collect half of the treasure cards in the room rounded up, and then you would choose another player, and that player collects all remaining golden cards and treasure cards in the room. So in this scenario, there's only 1 treasure in there. I'm sorry, 1 gold in there. So this would get me no treasure cards because this is half the treasure cards. The other players collect the remaining gold cards. Because this is just a gold, that's not a treasure. This little treasure chest is a treasure, and it also pertains to this treasure chest on here. So my character, this character, would not gain anything. But if they wanted to race them for it, then they would roll their dice, which again, this character gets to roll 2 purples, and if they get 4 swords, then they win. So wow, that was an amazing roll. So I got 4 swords. The swords will be tracked on here. As you can see, this is your sword total, and this is the spoils total. So swords, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not super important when you're doing little tests. Sometimes, I mean, like if you got a reroll on the spoil, because I did get 1 spoil actually, So if I had gotten a reroll on the spoils, I would mark the spoil, and then I roll again, and then I got another sword. So if I successfully completed the encounter, that's a success, and then I would get all the gold and treasure cards that were in that room. Again, this room just has one gold card, so I would just take one card off the top of the deck. I look at it, I keep it secret, and then and these are basically your victory points at the end of the game. Cards in this deck range from 1, 2, or 3. Cards in this deck have usually special powers, one-time use things. They're treasures, so they're a lot better. They are also worth victory points, listed at the bottom here. And some of them are worth negative victory points, and some of them are just straight gold. So that's just 4 gold basically. So so if it's not 4 gold, it's going to be some kind of special treasure that does something cool. It might allow you to re-roll something, might allow you to kind of break a rule, but that's that. Now, this encounter was a test. There are other encounters. That's a test. So this is a fight. So when a fight happens, like this, all we need to do is roll 4 swords. Now, when a fight happens, what will happen is you as the player roll your dice. So let's see, I got 2 swords and a spoil, and then I get to re-roll that, and I got 2 more spoils. Okay. Now, another player is going to take these dice listed here, 2 reds plus 2 whites, and they're going to roll them. And let's see, they got 2 spoils and 2 swords. That's not a great roll for them. So 2 spoils and 2 swords. If it's a tie, the person who initiated the combat is the winner. So as long as you meet or exceed what you were trying, who you were trying to face, you win. So if you win in combat, then you automatically get all of the gold bags and all of the treasure that's in a room. So in this case, I would get, let's say I was in this room, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags of treasure plus 5 bags of gold plus 2 bags of treasure. So I get 5 bags of gold, again, all just drawn blindly off the top of the deck, plus 1 treasure. So that's pretty awesome. If I were to have failed, normally in an encounter, if you fail, you still get to collect half of the gold cards rounded down. So that's good too. I mean, there was, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means I would get 3 gold cards, but I would collect no treasure. Also, if I failed an encounter, but I still had the highest amount of spoils, I would still get to get my spoil bonus. Now, if I roll 4 or less spoils and I'm the highest, then I get 1 gold card. If I roll 5 or more spoils and I'm the highest, I get 1 treasure card. If I was tied on spoils, nobody gets any spoils. It's only whoever's highest. So again, kobolds do have higher spoils, so they can steal more stuff. And let's see. So if I was fighting somebody else in this realm, let's just say somebody else was right here. We have the same things going on. Again, actually I forgot about those things. There's more stuff in there. Anyways, this room wasn't closed off, so it doesn't really matter. But if there was another person in there, we would roll our dice. This person is a brute, so they roll 3 white dice. Let's just pretend like these are the same results. Yeah, so let's say this is what happened. If it was the teal player's turn, again, if it's a tie, the player whose active turn it is wins the tie. If it's not an active player involved in it, then it's whoever's closest in turn order will win the tie. If there were 2 people trying to split all this stuff, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gold cards. So you would take 8, divide it by 2, and round down. So that's 4 gold cards for the teal player, and 4 gold cards. I'm sorry. What's remaining, you take half of those. So 4 divided in half, obviously, is 2. So that white player would get 2 gold cards, and then if there was any other player there, they would get another half rounded down. Whoever wins the battle gets all the treasure cards, though. So the gold cards are split, but the treasure cards go to the winner. So that's 1, 2, 3 treasure cards, which is, can potentially be really huge because they do cool things. Again, even if you lose the battle, but you were furthest ahead on the spoils, you still get whatever spoil bonus there is. I also didn't mention this first player marker. So whoever has the first player marker, it doesn't really do anything. Obviously, they start the game, but at the end of the game, whenever the game is over, and the game is over again, remember when the sun tracker goes all the way down here, or when the gold cards run out, whenever that end game trigger happens, everyone still gets an equal amount of turns. So, if the start player ended the game, it would go all the way around the table, and then it would end with the player sitting to the right of the start player. I didn't mention these special markings on the tiles. Some of the tiles have special markings. This is a magic rift. If a magic rift is in a room and you have a mage in that room, then immediately you will gain 3 attack right at the start. If you had 2 mages in the room, then each mage would get 3 attack. But if you just had 1 mage in a room and multiple magic rift icons, it's still just 3 attack per mage. So even if there were several rifts, if there's just 1 mage, then it's only 1 bonus of 3. Another special icon is this torch. Normally, every time you place a delver into a room, they're placed face down, so nobody knows what you have. But if a torch is placed in a room, then every delver that's put in that room gets flipped face up, and then if you were ever to place another delver into that room, as long as there's a torch there, they're always going to be placed face up. The sun icon I mentioned, which would speed up the end game. There's also this icon, which is the boots with the feathers. So if you place this, you immediately take another turn. Again, you place a tile, replenish a tile, you can place a delver, and then you place another tile. Let's see. XP, I haven't gotten into XP at all. When you start, as I mentioned, you start with 3 XP. XP allows you to do different things. Like I said, your characters will have a special ability. You can also use XP to do a few other special things. If you want, you can discard 1 XP, and if you don't like your hand of tiles, discard them all, get new ones. You can place a dungeon tile violating the corridor placement rule. So again, normally you always have to have corridor with a corridor, but if you want to discard an XP, which might need to happen later because you really want to place a tile to get a room going, to get a room closed off so you can score it, you can discard an XP to do so. You can also discard an XP to roll 2 additional white dice. You have to choose to do this before your roll. So if I see that I'm facing up against somebody that's really tough, let's say they're rolling 3 whites and 2 reds, and then before I roll, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this, so I'll turn in an XP and roll 2 extra white dice. Hopefully that gives me what I need. And you can turn in as many XP as you want to roll as many extra white dice. So 2 white dice per XP. You can use as many XP as you like on your turn. You can also spend an XP to retrieve a delver from the board. Delvers are stuck in their rooms until a room is closed off. Once a room is closed off, then you remove the delver and you put them back into your pile where you can use them for future turns. And then the last thing is to use your faction ability. I believe that is everything. Like I said, the game is very fun and quick. Plays in about 60-ish minutes. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Thanks.